Hi guys, my name is Cody Barillo. This is my second module here at Aurora for the MSW program, technically my third class, and I'm really excited to get started. I'm actually from Rockford, well, north of Rockford. It's a little town called Roscoe. Many of you probably don't know it, so Rockford is just easier to say. So I'm going to get started on answering the questions. So what does culture mean to me? I think culture is something that's inside all of us, but it doesn't technically define us as an individual. Culture influences our beliefs, our ways of thinking, our morals, and our values. And I think because it's learned, it changes constantly. It's not stagnant. It's constantly changing due to influences, whether it's times or whatever you may have it. I also think culture can vary within other cultures. For instance, my culture I define as Norwegian and German, and we're not a traditional Norwegian household. We don't really follow a lot of the Norwegian cultural dynamics, but we're pretty Americanized. So I would say that our culture differs within the Norwegian culture, just as any other ethnicity or race would do as well. How has culture impacted my life? I think it's impacted my life in every way. It's made me who I am. It's how I interact with people, how I go about my daily routine. Growing up, my parents obviously influenced my cultural dynamics the most. And I would say that we're a very traditional family in today's American society. My dad is the breadwinner, and my mom, she did work, so that is more, I would say, of a newer culture, because obviously not a lot of both parents didn't work all the time. So I think it comes from how we act on a daily basis is what our culture can encompass, really. So for instance, my mom, growing up, she made sure that when we left the house, everybody looked good. She had her full hair, her makeup, her full Sunday attire always on, and that kind of rubbed off on my sister and I. So I think I wouldn't necessarily say that that's a cultural thing. However, it certainly has made us who we are today. She's always said that our culture is judged by presentation. That would be the way we act, the way we dress, the way our house looks, the cars we drive, just everything in general, which to me is a little on the shallow side. So I've kind of veered from that, and I do have a 2-year-old daughter, so I would like her to veer from that as well. I want her to go out in public and be able to go out without makeup or her full hair done and not be so self-conscious and think that that's okay. And you don't have to drive the fanciest car, have the fanciest house, just to impress people, because if people are going to judge you on your presentation, they're going to do it anyways. And I just don't think it's necessary, so I've kind of veered from my parents' culture in that sense. I just want my daughter, to see her the way I see her in my own eyes, and I just think that that really has impacted so much. As a social worker, I need to know more about culture, ethnicity, and oppression in the following ways. I think all ways possible. I think there's always room to learn. There's always different cultures changing, new cultures being introduced. Culture is not something that's stagnant. It's changing with time. It's changing every day. There's so many influences that change your culture and people's cultures within other cultures that I think it's something that you're always going to have to commit to learning to, and just constantly keep up with. Other thoughts about culture that people need to know about. I think it's important for people to recognize that culture doesn't define a population based on their cultures. I think people should be more knowledgeable, including myself, about what different cultures consist of and their practices, because I, for one, am not too familiar with a lot of other cultures. I work with the population in Rockford at a Rockford Sexual Assault Counseling Center, and a lot of them vary in culture. There's so many different cultures in Rockford. I would say that it's a very diverse population. So I have learned a lot with that job, and I think that it's very important for other people to learn about that as well on a daily basis. And I also think it's important, like I said, to not define a population based on their cultures. So how might this impact my clients? I think that knowledge is power with everything, especially culture, because it's the way people go about their day, it's the way that they act, it's the way that they react, and it is just something that you're going to always have to be knowledgeable about, and I think that that's going to better serve all of your clients. How do I approach the topic of culture with my clients? Working with RSAC now, which is the Rockford Sexual Assault Counseling Center, I often try to understand cultures of my clients, because like I said, we're a very diverse city, and there's so many different just cultures within our town. So I always ask them, I start by asking just an array of questions just to kind of get a history of who they think is in their family dynamics, what their roles are, just to kind of get their culture, I guess, learned for myself. And then I always try and understand the client and their values and beliefs, just because I think what may be appropriate to one client isn't going to always be appropriate to another. So yeah, that's all I have today. So thank you for listening.